All right. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning for some of you, perhaps, but it's just welcome. Welcome back to our research webinars. Very happy to get back to this, to our series, to our community of knowledge sharing, which is, of course, driven by our experts. So it's been a while, but here we are again. We're back, and we're back with another topic. And the topic for today is the one that it won't surprise anyone in the community that we are also offering some content on that, and that is online adaptive radiotherapy. So we today are launching a series which we called Adaptive Care Your Way. So it's a whole series. So we just launching it today with the first episode. And for the first episode, we have two presenters. So we have Alex with us today. So hello, Alex. And then we have Rune as well from Weile Hospital joining us today. And
Hello.
hello, Rune. And then it's me who's moderating that. And my name is Marta. Super happy to be here with you today. And we're not only three of us. We actually have more people because we do realize that it's a topic that is which is very addressed and co discussed in the community. So we also invited our research experts. And with that, we have Stina Svensson, our research engineer. Hello, Stina. We have Gunnar with us, who is responsible for system developer and particular in RayStation and the module that will be discussed quite in detail today. And finally, we also have B joining us, who is a clinical specialist representing RayCare, our oncology information system. So that's the team today. And that's the team that's today here to offer you online adaptive radiotherapy content and showing it that you can start where you are. You can start what you have in the clinic and see if that could be advanced to adaptive treatments. So just before going into the our users, Alex and Runa's presentation, let's start with a little bit of a background and where do we stand. So, on adaptive radiotherapy benefits, I mean, we all know them and they are across the different stakeholders. You take it case cancer patients, you take clinical staff, you take healthcare providers. All of these stakeholders, they would benefit from simply improved outcomes. Cancer patients would have what? More personalized treatment, reduced side effects. Clinical staff, as it could feel now, it is more resource heavy when it comes to implement adaptive treatments. But longer term, more personalized and improved outcomes would lead to less re-radiations, less comeback to clinics, and would alleviate that stress that clinical staff have with just increased number of cancer patients annually. And then for healthcare providers, on top of the improved outcomes, you can also think about cost effective. It will lead to less treatments if we do offer the more personalized treatments to begin with. And obviously this innovation advantage because it is something new to still roll out as a clinical practice. So when we think about new, let's take a step back and see about the adaptive radiotherapy revolution. So it all started with this very well-known paper, which was published 1995, that described first concept of what is the adaptive radiotherapy. Then if we look in the 2000s, this is where the offline workflows and imaging foundation started to build. So we had the first onboard CBCT imaging on linacs, and that built that foundation needed for online adaptive therapy. In the next decade, so to 2010s, the first commercial systems entered the clinic. So this is where we had the VRA Meridian, Elekta Unity, so a bit more MR based, but commercially offered. And then this is where we stand now. So 2020s. So more commercial systems are being introduced, and then we do go to these very well deserved questions as like, can it become a clinical reality? And overall, it gives us like the 30 years of adaptive radiotherapy. So that's the evolution, right? But when we put it a little bit in the perspective and then see what portion of patients are actually receiving online adaptive radiotherapy. Of course, this is a very rough estimate. We don't have exact numbers, but we can definitely say that it's in the range of hundreds of thousands of patients who have received online adaptive radiotherapy in the entire evolution. So it's in 30 years. But when we look more globally in perspective, then it's 10,000, tens of millions of new cancer diagnoses globally each year. And that's a perspective which should probably look something more like this, right? So there's obviously something is missing. So what is missing that we have such a huge number of cancer patients who are still are not receiving adaptive radiotherapy or adaptive treatments? And we believe in research that what is missing is that practical technological solution, right? So something that clinics could adapt, roll out, train your staff, and be comfortable with making that decisions if, when, and how to adapt. So when it comes to this practical technological solution, how we believe that is, so what is needed for online adaptive radiotherapy? So we believe that the solution has to be fast because it's very time sensitive treatment approach. Has to be consistent, so it has to be standardized. There has to be some sort of agreement in the community of what is the main goal here and how to do that. And obviously, the solution has to be user friendly. And then with over this series that we launched now, Adaptive Care Your Way, we will be tapping into each of these circles. And I believe today we mainly will focus on the third one, and the third one being user friendly. So a solution that is intuitive, open, fits today's clinic, and it has that automation. It is vendor neutral. It is open to your installed fleet. So you don't need any dedicated siloed systems and investments that are. And then it locks potential of existing device with more patients benefiting from online adaptive. And for us at RaySearch, we believe that this is that automated replanning module that is available in RayStation, and it will be highly covered by both Alex and Rune today in this webinar. So I'm sure you'll see more of it, but just to give you a quick review of how it looks. So that's just a screenshot of the module. And what is nice about this module is that it has these steps above. So it's just right here at the bottom, at the top, where you can see how we tailor and design the whole workflow to be intuitive, to be user friendly. And then we also include things like direct evaluation between what was adapted and what was scheduled, so you can have that clear view in one space, in one module, which we call automated replanning module. So yes, so that was a quick introduce of where we stand from our research point of view when it comes to when it comes to online adaptive treatments. And just before I hand it over to our presenters, we also asked you to answer some questions while you were registering, and I would like to share at least one for now. And then we asked if you are already planning adaptive treatments and using that approach in your clinics. So the results were that 44% of all of you said that yes, routinely, or yes for some cases or trials. And 36% of you said no, but we are planning to, and only 10% said no. So a huge bunch of you here on this webinar today and the community are true believers of online adaptive. And when it comes to what did you think is the biggest barrier of why is not online adaptive scaling to a level of at least millions of patients? You said 62% of you said workflow integrations. And I believe with that, I will hand it over to Alex because it is a very, it is on the topic what will be discussed about workflow integrations and the experience that Alex and his brilliant team made at Royal Marsden starting a few years back. I would say. So, Alex, please share your experience with us.
Hear me, Morta? Are you able to hear me? Is that all? Yeah, good. So as Morta's introduced me, I'm Alex Dunlop. I work at the Royal Marsden Hospital here in London, the UK. We're going to talk about the development of online adaptive radiotherapy workflow using the RayStation automated replanning functionality and how we've rolled that out across multiple platforms in our centre. Just at the very beginning, I'd like to put the acknowledgements here. A lot of people from lots of different professions have worked to make this possible in our centre, including people from research. So thanks to everybody from the outset. Okay, so just going to start off with a bit of context. So you will be familiar with our non-adaptive radiotherapy patient pathway pre-treatment. So we always image a patient, define our targets and organs at risk and do treatment planning. We check that plan and maybe we do some patient QA. The plan's prepped and we can deliver our treatments in the NHS setting in the UK. That's usually taking a couple of working weeks. And then during treatment, we can perform online image-guided radiotherapy correction. So this is where we set our patient up on the treatment couch. You can probably see that with a prostate, which is a target here, is slightly offset. So we can acquire an image of the patient, register that image, the planning CT, shift the couch, deliver our radiotherapy. And largely that's working quite nicely. But we are, of course, making the assumption that the patient is a rigid body and just shifting the patient with respect to the beams. So we all know that the patients are changing over the course or the time period between simulation imaging and our treatment. And in fact, it's just changing day to day. And here's an example of one of our rectal patients in the clinic where the GTV in the pre-treatment is shown red and is green on the first day of treatment. Of course, we have methods in the clinic to account for this when we're not adapting. So we generate PTV volumes to make sure that we hit the target each fraction. But also organs at risk are moving day to day, and these can be dose limiting. And the patient external contour may change throughout the course of treatment, and this can systematically affect the dose calculation. So we're motivated to perform online adaptive radiotherapy, and this is the overall concept of it. So essentially, we have a reference plan generated on a reference image that's here. And then we can set our patient up on the online adaptive treatment unit, classically, and this is in the context of an MR linac. And then we essentially acquire an image, our daily image. We register that with our reference image, generate contours somehow, generate a plan. And if we're happy with the plan is safe, we can deliver that treatment maybe after a couch shift. But I think the point I'm trying to make with these slides is that everything that we're doing in online adaptive radiotherapy, so imaging, reg, contouring, optimization, checking, and treatment is basically the same as what we're doing in the offline world. It's just that we're reducing what takes us, let's say, 2 weeks down to a matter of minutes for online adaptive radiotherapy. We believe in online adaptive radiotherapy, and since 2018, we've been using the concept on our Elekta Unity MR linac system, and this is just a program of work of the different types of treatments we've been performing on our MR linac, and we're very happy with it, and it enables us to treat some very interesting protocols. But we sort of, the MR linacs globally, they're not widely available, they're quite expensive, and have quite long treatment session times with limited field length. And over the last few years, as Morta has alluded to, X-ray based platforms have become quite well established in the UK and Europe and the rest of the world as well, with over 100 ethos machines worldwide. So online adaptive radiotherapy is gaining traction, and it can be for both MR and X-ray based imaging modalities. And here's just a slide showing the 4 main commercial systems to perform online adaptive radiotherapy with different imaging, so MRI or X-ray, different solutions for contouring and plan selection and what to do if the patient shifts during the online adaptive workflow. And they're all very nice. But to a certain extent, if you have the money to buy one of these all-in-one solutions, and they are quite expensive, as Morta also mentioned, they come with some nice advantages. So you've got seamless integration between the hardware and the software, because they all come with their dedicated software, but that you do have to learn that new piece of software if you're going to use it clinically. And the adaptive workflows are only really working within the vendor-provided framework, so they could be platform-specific and not particularly flexible, and it can quite often be seen as black box units. And sometimes the software provided doesn't necessarily have the state-of-the-art features. So we decided to widen access to online adaptive radiotherapy at our centre. We wanted to go down a different route. So we wanted to combine a already existing treatment platform. So here is the Accuray Radixact, which has got long imaging and treatment fields, so not limited in that respect, good image quality, which is appropriate for daily online contouring and dose calculation, and combine it with the state-of-the-art treatment planning system, RayStation. So this has the advantages that there's frequent software updates, and we've got the state-of-the-art features within the system, like AI contouring and automated replanning functionality. But we also have to acknowledge that perhaps there are some negatives with this approach, that there are additional issues with data transfer and system requirements, but hopefully by the end of this talk, I will have convinced you that the way that can be implemented isn't a particular barrier. And then one of the sort of biggest advantages of this sort of approach is that if you can solve an online adaptive workflow with this kind of setup for one treatment platform, you should be able to transfer it to your entire fleet. So our aim in general was to see if we could replicate a sort of ethos-style workflow, shall we say, and speed with the newly installed Radixact unit at our centre. Okay, and here's just some examples of some clear RT fan beam CT images that we can acquire on the Radixact unit, and I hope you agree they're good quality and suitable for online adaptation. Okay, so when it comes to the workflow that we've implemented, we try to take advantage of the lessons that we've learned from sort of 8 years of online adaptation on the MR-Linac. So in terms of dose calculation in the Unity world, we have to calculate dose using bulk density override strategies. But using RayStation with Radixact, there are more strategies available. So there's bulk density. I'm really interested in comparing the lookup table approach. So this is where you define a CT number, a sort of imager preset CT number to density specific lookup table for dose calculation, and RayStation's corrected cone beam CT algorithm. So here's just an example of some of the data that we, some of the results that we had for our gynecological treatment sites. So 12 patient cases where we looked at the dose calculation accuracy of our lookup table calculation compared with our corrected cone beam CT. And in general, they were both working quite nicely. But there was a case for patient number 5, which was a larger test case where the lookup table was sort of approaching 2% difference in dose calculation accuracy with our ground truth, whereas the corrected cone beam CT, even for this challenging case, was still quite accurate. And I think this is just some images of that challenging case with the ground truth on the left and our lookup table and corrected cone beam CT there, right. So for gynecological cases, the corrected cone beam CT looked like the more accurate method. And then we also looked at different clinical indications. So rectum, head and neck and prostate bed, and corrected cone beam CT was always coming out as better than lookup table. The lookup table was generally okay, but we were very happy with the corrected cone beam CT. So that was our preferred option to take forward. In terms of lessons that we've learned from the MR-Linac over many years of treatment, we have done many risk assessments for online adaptive radiotherapy, and I don't expect you to read all of our sort of different risks that I've listed on the right-hand side. I'm certainly not going to say them, but there are lots of steps within the online workflow that can pose risk. And we like to ensure that we've checked or at least mitigated those risks. So for online plan checking, we require our processes to be fast and integrated into the workflow. And essentially what we've done is implement our checks using a RayStation script and they're in three main stages. So safety checks we perform before we start the online adaptive workflow, and we call them pre-flight checks. And this is sort of making sure that there's no erroneous DICOM data in the import directory that's going to mix up the online adaptive workflow and things like that. Step two is after we've generated our online adaptive plan, and we run a script that checks all of the plan parameters and make sure that they are as expected. And then finally, just before we deliver our radiotherapy, our online adaptive plan, we perform a transfer check to make sure that the plan that we're about to deliver is the plan that we've just optimized in RayStation. So we're confident that we're delivering the right thing. But if you're interested in risks about online adaptive radiotherapy, there's a whole sort of wealth of literature in this subject. If you just want to concentrate on one of them to start with, I would recommend this paper in the Red Journal that was published in late 2024, which is a really good overview. And just as a shameless plug, in the UK, all of the centres performing online adaptive radiotherapy have come together, and we performed a FMEA to look at risk in online adaptive radiotherapy. So that's just out. So have a look at that if you're interested. Okay, so in terms of our online adaptive workflow, there are some prerequisites. On the left-hand side here, we've got our reference plan. So this is a reference plan optimized on a reference image that's prepared before the first online adaptive fraction. So this is done in RayStation in the usual way. On the top right, when we're preparing our first online adaptive fraction for the patient, so before fraction 1, we produce this configuration file. So it's quite small, it's only 7 lines. But this just provides some information on the protocol that we're going to treat adaptively and allows us to automate some of the tasks. So it tells us what the name of the reference plan is, for example, and what online plan generation protocol and online structure template we're going to use for the workflow. And then finally, for all of our online adaptive patients, whether they're using RayStation with RadXact or on the MR-Linac, we always produce a handover log, which details all of the key information for the online adaptive workflow that we're about to perform. So there's information about registration and contouring in there, what the name of the reference plan is, if there's space in the handover log to detail if yesterday's optimization was tricky and how you might make some changes to improve optimization in the daily plan. And the whole idea of the handover log is to reduce risk in the online adaptive workflow, making the acknowledgement that the team performing adaptive radiotherapy today might be completely different to the team that was delivering the treatment yesterday. So there's a good robust handover so all the information can be passed across. Okay. So then on to our actual RayStation RadXact online adaptive workflow. This is the chart that we've designed and implemented in our clinics. There's lots of details and steps, but each step is sort of designated a staff group, whether they're the radiographer or RTT, the treatment planner, the person who's generating the plan, the person who's checking the plan, or somebody who's doing the contouring or reviewing the plan. And of course, these tasks can be performed by the same person under specific delegation. But going through this in a little bit more detail. Okay, so at the start of the online adaptive workflow, we set the patient up on the treatment couch. The radiographers do that, and they acquire the daily scan. And whilst that's happening, our treatment planner will start a script in RayStation, which sort of drives the whole online adaptive workflow. That script will launch this patient and protocol information dialog. So it will read what patient is currently open on the treatment delivery console and give us patient demographics, what the name of the reference plan is, and what fraction they're on, and the templates that we're going to use for the online workflow. And we can compare that information with the handover log. So we're nice and confident that we've got the right patient and we know what protocol we're about to treat. And then the pre-flight checks will be performed to make sure that there's no erroneous DICOM data in the import directory or to make sure that we've got a planning license, for example. So everything's set up for the online treatments. Then after the image is treatment delivery console, the image and reg file are automatically exported to a directory, and our RayStation script, which is still running, will pick up those data and automatically import it into RayStation. And then the script will continue running and create a corrected cone beam CT, which I was describing slightly earlier. And once the corrected cone beam CT is generated, it will automatically define an external ROI and position the couch structure on the image. And then finally, it will load an online structure template. So this is the structure template that we've told the script we're going to use in our configuration file. And then we have a protocol-specific online structure template. So, I have to admit that the list here doesn't sort of match the head image, but essentially in the online world, you can define this structure template and ROIs can be generated using DLS. They can obviously be margins, so they can be derived, or you can rigidly or deformably propagate from a reference image. So in general, we're using DLS to define our organs at risk, and we're either rigidly or deformably propagating our CTVs. So at this stage, our script is pausing after the structure template has been run to enable the contourer to perform necessary edits to the targets and the OARs. But once they're happy with the contours of the day, we resume the script, and the script launches the automated replanning module, which Morta showed some images of a little bit earlier. And this is where we run our online plan generation protocol, again, that we've defined in our configuration file. But essentially, this is going to run optimization using a template objective function on our daily plan with our daily structures. And then in the treatment automated replanning module, we can then compare our daily optimized plan against either our reference plan or, probably more usefully, our scheduled plan. And the scheduled plan is the reference plan recalculated on the daily image with the daily anatomy. And we can review this plan, and we can look at the DVHs or look at the clinical goals and make our decision whether we want to go with the scheduled plan or the adapted plan. In general, we're almost always choosing the adapted plan, and our reviewer will then review that, approve that plan in RayStation, and then at this point we run our plan checking scripts, which checks about 50 or so parameters within 30 seconds of the plan to make sure it's safe to treat. Once we've checked the plan, our radiographers will take a second image. So even though we try and do things as quickly as possible, we have to acknowledge that these are longer treatment sessions than IGRT workflow. So we want to make sure the patient hasn't moved in such a way to compromise target coverage within the session. So we take that, we call it a verification image, and the radiographers will then match that against the daily image, the first image of the session that we have planned on, and perform a couch shift. And just before treatments, we run our final RayStation script, which we call data transfer. And this is going to check the plan parameters with what's open, the open plan in RayStation against an RT plan file that has been exported from the treatment delivery console. So we're very confident that the plan that we've just optimized is the one that we're about to deliver to the patient. And then we deliver our treatment. So we've been using this workflow clinically for just over a year, generally, like most for post-operative endometrial cancer and also for prostate bed since the start of this year. The reason why we started with post-op endometrial cancer was that these patients have significant day-to-day interfraction motion, and correspondingly, when we're not adapting, they have very large PTV margins. Furthermore, there's potential to leverage online adaptive radiotherapy with trials in the future, for example, for hypofractionation. So these two bullet points at the end here are sort of linked, and I think they're quite important. And essentially, after we just delivered a very modest number of online adaptive radiotherapy fractions for these patients, we quickly moved to much smaller PTV margins than what we have in the non-adaptive world. And that's because we wanted to make sure that, like, before we had accumulated enough data to do a thorough PTV margin reduction analysis, we wanted to make sure that those patients that are being treated using this workflow and are on the couch for longer were having some benefit. So we very quickly moved from these 1 centimetre and 1.5 centimetre PTV margins down to 0.7 for the Volk CTV, and we were able to also reduce the nodal PCB margins from 0.7 to 0.5 quite quickly as well. And we're refining those margins now that we've accumulated lots more data from lots of treatments. And here's just a clinical example. So on the left is our daily adaptive plan with our daily adaptive PTV shown as a pink contour. We want to cover by this red isodose color wash. And you can see on the right-hand side, the schedule plan. So this is the reference plan recalculated on the daily image. Because we've reduced the margins in combined with tumor shrinkage and motion and change of size and shape, we've got a much more conformal plan, whereas in the schedule plan, we're basically treating the whole rectum to prescription dose. And this patient also lost weight as well. So they were having hotspots outside of their target volume on the scheduled calculation as well. And here's just the same fraction, but with DVHs. So a big improvement there. So we've treated hundreds of fractions with reduced margins now. Treatment time is between 25 and 35 minutes, which I would say is similar to what's typically reported for other X-ray based all-in-one systems. And we're working on trying to refine our PTV margins as well. So we think they could go down. So a couple of points here. The future plan for online adaptive radiotherapy. We have to acknowledge that even though we've made this quite efficient, it is longer than IGRT. But this is where we can leverage technology and improve treatment. So we're now looking, instead of treating these patients over 25 fractions, we're looking to open a trial where we can treat them in 5 fractions, so a hyperfractionated trial, which we think is only possible with the reduced PTV margins with online adaptive radiotherapy. So cumulatively, if that becomes a reality, then we would actually be saving time, even if we don't reduce these session times anymore. And we're also aware that more staff are required on set, but we're actively working on reducing this resource burden with RTT contouring and the planner approving the plan. So I'd say at this stage, before I go on to this final 5 minutes of my talk, I think we've shown that you don't need one of these all-in-one adaptive systems to perform high quality and efficient workflows. You just need a treatment platform which is able to acquire an image, an acceptable image for the indication and protocol being treated. Okay, so then how can we leverage what we've performed in RayStation with Radixact to the rest of our fleet? Well, I guess the advantage of using an independent software is that with a very few small number of tweaks, it should be transferable to all the other machines. So I'm just going to go through a few slides of what we've done with the Elekta C-arm. So this is using agility with XVI imaging. So in terms of validation of the corrected cone beam CT algorithm, it's slightly trickier because the underlying image quality is not quite as good, so it's harder to get a ground truth. But we were able to sort of leverage years of bulk density override approaches on the MR linac to get our ground truth for this, and found that the corrected cone beam CT is still working really nicely here. And then the next big issue for the Elekta workflow was how can we overcome, or how can we have a workflow where we can acquire a second cone beam CT, the verification, and match it against the image of the day, working within the XVI software. And without going into too many details, it was quite a lot of work, but this is how we solved it, and we embedded that into our workflow. And so this is our workflow for Elekta C-arm with RayStation. We had to put in some extra safety checks to ensure that those mosaic tasks were done correctly. And the first treatment protocol we planned to use this on was a whole bladder, where we thought the image quality was enough. And we actually treated a patient in December 2025, thereby demonstrating proof of principle that the workflow can be adapted to multiple platforms. And there's just an example of one of the fractions that we treated. And with the big hardware companies introducing improved image reconstructions going forwards, we think that this will open up the opportunity to do more of these types of workflows because the imaging quality will be more appropriate for a wider range of treatment indications. So in Saturn, we have our MR-Linac, and we love our MR-Linac. It enables us to treat using online adaptive radiotherapy protocols that we couldn't treat on any other platform. That certainly has its place, but to widen access, we've got our Radiotherapy, and that's a solution that I'd be going through in the majority of this talk. We're just commissioning an Elekta Evo with its iris imaging, so we're hoping that the workflow should be transferable to that platform in the future. And for our remaining 4 Elekta C-arms, we've already shown that for specific protocols, even then the image quality is good enough to perform online adaptive radiotherapy. So that's how we are in the Royal Marsden in Sutton. But our hospital has 2 sites. So we're very much in South London, but we've got a site in Central London as well. They've got 4 variant TrueBeam linacs, and at the moment we're exploring how we can adapt our scripts and workflows. RayStation solution on the variant TrueBeam as well, and that's us practicing it not that long ago. So just to finish up, I'm just 30 seconds over, but I've got 30 seconds more. This is the overall concept. For all of these platforms, we've got our workflows. They're all like slightly different, but most of the steps are similar, and it's quite clear who's responsible for each step of the workflow. At the very beginning, we always have our patient confirmation and protocol dialogue to make sure that we've got the patient and we're going to treat the right protocol. And then the image is automatically imported into RayStation, no matter what the platform. We always create a corrected cone beam CT. We always then go to automated replanning and run a online plan generation protocol to generate our plan. So all of this is the same no matter what platform we're on. Once we've got our forms for plan checking to make sure the plan is safe to deliver. And for all the platforms, we've got very similar transfer checks as well. So although they are, to some extent quite different platforms, the online adaptive radiotherapy procedures feel quite similar between them. So these are my conclusions. I'll just go over them very briefly, but we believe in online adaptive radiotherapy and we want to widen access to it now. And I think we've shown that we can perform it efficiently and safely and high quality within RayStation, and this could be rolled out across the entire fleet of platforms at our centre. So thank you.
All right, Alex, thank you so much. As promised, almost on time, which is great. And just so you know, Alex, you have a couple questions in the Q&A section, so you're more than welcome to jump straight in there and answer it there if we are running a little bit out of time at the end of the webinar. And I just would like to use this opportunity and encourage everyone to leave the questions in the Q&A section. And even if we wouldn't have enough time to cover all of them, we will come back and follow up with an email to make sure that everything is answered. But I believe it's time to move to our second presenter, who we have Rune with us. Rune coming from Vejle Hospital in Denmark. And let's hear more of your experience and then take the questions after that as well. All right, Rune. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Marta. Thank you for the introduction and for giving me the opportunity to share our experiences from Vejle using online adaptive radiotherapy, using RayStation as treatment planning system and Elekta linacs for palliative treatments. To frame the work that we've been doing, 3 years ago we saw this publication coming out describing how the ether system was used to speed up the process of urgent palliative treatments. They reported that they could do consultation and treatment within 2 hours in the hospital, which we thought was quite impressive, considering that our current practice for urgent palliative radiotherapy still was same-day consultation, CT scan, first treatment. And when we looked at the time our patients had to spend in the hospital, on average, that was between 5 and 6 hours. And sometimes these working days were quite stressful because we needed to get everything done before the end of the day. And given that these patients are probably in the last phase of their lives, it made sense for us to figure out if we could shorten the time that they had to spend in the hospital. So we started thinking about what is the not have an ethos, and there was no signs in the stars or the planets aligning that we would ever get an ethos in our clinic. But if we broke it down, what we really needed for online adaptive, at least for palliative radiotherapy, was some sort of in-room imaging that was suitable for delineation and dose calculation. That was pretty quickly checked off if we stick to treating bone metastases, because the bones are perfectly visible on our standard cone beam CTs on the Elekta XVI system. And a year before we saw this paper, we did a study validating that the dose calculation of the corrected cone beam and virtual CT algorithms in RayStation are accurate to within 1 or 2% depending on the anatomical site. And for palliative treatments, we consider 1 or 2% of extra uncertainty to be okay. Was whether or not we could design an efficient workflow that would allow us to do online adaptive treatments in an acceptable time window where the patient could stay on the couch and we would not destroy the program of our linacs for an entire day just to treat one patient. So the infrastructure that we have in our clinic is, as I said, Elekta linacs, C-arms. This is our oldest machine, an Elekta Infinity from 2014. We have Mosaic as our record and verify system, RayStation for treatment planning. For secondary dose calculations, we have the IBA MyQA Ion implementation of the Simoca Monte Carlo dose engine. And then we have in-house developed Python scripting, checking that the data transfer from RayStation to Mosaic is what we're expecting it to be. And we use this for all of our plans, whether or not they're adapted. So to be more specific, what did we do to treat palliative radiotherapy for bone metastases with online adaptive treatments on Elekta linacs? Basically, we saw that we could replace our normal radiotherapy planning CT with a recent diagnostic CT. So the benefit for the patient here is that they do not have to get an additional CT scan with the extra time that is needed, and we can perform target delineation and treatment planning before the patient even enters our department. To account for anatomical variations between the diagnostic CT and the treatment situation, we adapt the contours and the plan from the pre-plan on the diagnostic CT to the anatomy as seen on the daily cone beam CT. So here you have the diagnostic CT for a patient that is lying quite heavily on his left side. He's more flat on the cone beam CT, and therefore we needed to adapt the contours and the plan on the corrected cone beam CT. You can notice that the couch is looking really funny underneath the patient from the deformable image registration that is part of creating the corrected cone beam CT. But since it's not within the external contour and we have a density override on our treatment couch, it doesn't affect the dose calculation at all. Now, when we want to replace our radiotherapy planning CT with a diagnostic CT, we need to consider that there are some requirements for this to succeed. First of all, we need the patient outline to be within the diagnostic CT field of view. Quite obviously, we need the entire patient to be able to calculate the depth dose deposition. And sometimes the radiology departments will do really small field of view scans. So you need to check that. Then we want the patient size to be smaller than the cone beam CT field of view, and that is quite easy to measure. Just measure the patient and know what your field of view size is on the cone beam CT. And then we must have the images that are suitable for dose calculation. One thing to note here is that when you create a corrected cone beam CT in RayStation, it inherits the Hounsfield unit to density curve from your planning CT. So if your planning CT is not suitable for dose calculation, then your corrected cone beam CT will not be that either, unless you change. Well, yeah, you might be able to do some tricks, but out of the box, it's not working. But luckily, we had contacts to people who had acquired a lot of CAT scan scans on CT and PET CT scanners from the region where we get our patients from. So here you have data points from 168 CAT scan scans acquired on 33 different scanners. And essentially, what we concluded was that scans acquired at a KVP of 100 or more are okay for palliative treatment planning. Note again here, the keyword is palliative treatment planning. It might not be all right for curative treatment where you want to eradicate the last cancer cell, but for palliative treatments, the uncertainty associated with making this decision we consider to be just fine. The workflow in RayStation was implemented in version 11b, where there was no automated replanning module available. So we used scripting to generate deformable image registrations and corrected cone beam CT, and to do structure propagation that could be chosen to be either rigid or deformable. And then the plan adaptation was performed sort of manually with the functions that were available in RayStation at the time. We have not commissioned deep learning segmentation in our hospital yet, so everything is done by either rigid or deformable registration. Last year, we updated RayStation to version 2024b, where the automated replanning module became available to us. We still hold on to some scripting because there were a few quirks of the automated replanning module that we were not quite happy with, but that should be fixed in the version that is being released this year. So right now we still do the creation of a corrected cone beam CT and structure propagation with the script, and then we do plan recalculation and adaptation in the automated replanning module. So I would like to show you 2 examples of what this workflow might, or what the plans might look like here. The first example is a patient referred for palliative treatment of a single thoracic vertebra receiving 20 grays and 4 fractions, and designed with a 3 partial arc VMAT treatment here to allow the arms to be down if needed on the day of treatment. This is the dose distribution of the pre-plan on the diagnostic CT. Here we have the plan recalculated on the corrected cone beam CT, and you can barely tell the difference here. So this plan would be fine to treat without online adaptation, but since we designed a study to investigate how the online adaptive workflow would work for us, we of course went along and did online adaptive plan on this patient as well. And looking at the clinical goals, again, you can barely tell the difference between the pre-plan calculated on the corrected cone beam CT, and the adaptive plan. So everything would have been fine to treat here. Pick one. Another example is this shoulder that I showed you earlier, the delineations of. This was the pre-plan. He was referred to a single fraction of 8 gray and planned with a single 215 degree VMAT arc. So here's the pre-plan. His positioning was quite different on the treatment couch, so we were missing target coverage of the PTV here. And we're able to somewhat recover this by expanding the volume of receiving the prescribed dose in the adaptive plan. So here is the pre-plan, pre-plan calculated on the corrected cone beam CT, and we see that we're recovering the target coverage that we wanted when performing online adaptive radiotherapy. I'm guessing that most of you will now be wondering, how long does this take? And since October 2023, we've treated 11 patients in this workflow. Here you have the time in minutes from patient entering the linac vault until exit. The plan adaptation time itself in RayStation has taken us a median of 20 minutes, including all the reviews by doctors and if needed, adaptations of the contours as well. The in-bunker time median was 53 minutes, ranging from 46 to 105. The very long times are due to, well, one patient urinated on the treatment couch, and we had the linac head below the couch at that moment. So before we could treat him, we had to transfer him to another linac. And that basically added to the entire treatment time of this patient. But those things happen in real life. So we were actually quite happy to see the variations of time within this limited number of patients. The data transfer and plan QA that we have to include when we're not working with an integrated platform took us a median of 11 minutes, ranging from 8 to 17. So that, I mean, it's not 1 or 2 minutes, and given that quite a large number of these patients could actually be treated without plan adaptation, that got us thinking, well, is it necessary to adapt all of these treatment plans? Yeah, so 9 out of the 11 patients had acceptable clinical goals without the online adaptive procedure. And about the time we realized this, we also saw that there was a very large study published from Australia demonstrating that they were just delivering simulation-free palliative radiotherapy to 1,000 patients, and everything was just fine. So we've sort of moved away from doing online adaptive palliative radiotherapy in this setting for the sake of doing it, and are moving towards a workflow that is more tailored to what each patient needs. So my vision for how we could do online adaptive in our clinic in the future, and this is not implemented yet, so this is just my idea of what the future might look like, is that we create a plan before treating the first fraction for the patient. And it could be based on a diagnostic CT, it could be based on our normal radiotherapy treatment or simulation CT. And we get the patient to treatment, acquire a cone beam CT, and check the anatomy using surrogates, as we always do. If the anatomy is fine, we deliver the treatment. If the anatomy is not fine based on these anatomical measures that we've set up, the triggers, we calculate the dose on the corrected cone beam CT. This might show that even though the anatomy looks different, the dose distribution is fine, and we can deliver treatment without adapting. This dose calculation on the corrected cone beam CT could be performed within no. So a very nice way of gaining confidence in the treatment that you're delivering. If the calculated dose is not fine, we should consider adaptive replanning. And here we have 3 options. One is to do online adaptive. Leave the patient on the couch, do your procedure, accept that it will take you 20-30 minutes before the fraction is ready to deliver. You could also do fast offline art. So basically get the patient off the couch, put him in the waiting room, and then treat 1 or 2 other patients while your colleagues adapt the plan to the anatomy that you see, and then get the patient back in and deliver the adaptive plan that was just created. That way you don't you free up the linac time to certain extent. It requires some flexibility in your scheduling, but that could probably be solved. And finally, if you really need it, you could do the full classic rescanning procedure and target delineation and replanning as I guess all of us do today. And by the end of your adaptive procedure, whether or not it's one or the other, you deliver your treatment as intended. So, my second to last slide here. How do you get started if you want to dive into online adaptive with or without an adaptive and a dedicated machine? Sorry. I think you should start by realizing why you want to perform online adaptive radiotherapy. Is it to gain better tumor control and or less toxicity? That's a super solid point for opening up the world of online adaptive. You could also choose patient comfort. That is basically what we did. We're aiming to deliver the same quality treatment that we usually do, but with less time in hospital for the patient. or you could find any other good reason why you want to get started, or what the objective of your first online adaptive treatments are. Then I think, especially when, well, again, dedicated machinery, you really need to know your tools and their limitations. What level of accuracy do you need? What are you coming from? I mean, we need to revisit all the things that we're taking for granted now if we are thinking about changing them. And then, as Alex also pointed out, the multidisciplinary teamwork is really a key to succeeding. Get everybody on board, figure out who do you need when, make sure that they can be available and that you have the resources to deliver the treatment that you want the patient in due time. So with that, I would like to thank you all for listening in, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Yes, Rune. Thank you. Thank you so much for a great talk. So, and being on a couple minutes to answer some of the questions. So, Alex, great job. I saw you being very productive and busy answering the questions. So I hope people who asked got their answers. And then if we go to some questions to you, Rune. So people were, first of all, thanking you for a wonderful talk. And Valerio, he was interesting, or she, excuse me, when you plan on diagnostic CT, which electron density level you use. In my clinical practice, I have many patients that undergo diagnostic CT outside my hospital.
Yeah, that is the same that we have. So that's basically why we collected these 130 some or 160 some CAT-scan scans that were required on all these scanners to basically characterize the population of CT scanners that we were getting scans from. And with if the KVP is more than 100 and it's not a dual energy or photon counting CT, we're quite confident that we can use the same Hounsfield unit to electron density table that we're using on our dedicated CT scanner for radiotherapy planning.
Mm-hmm. Great. And one of the outcomes that I got from your presentation, Bruno, you really raised a very good and relevant question. Is like we should be a bit more critical and decide more when to adapt, and not only adapt for all the cohort of patients that we have, and probably not reaching to millions of people. And I know that it's also we received so many questions regarding that topic. So what I would like to do is to continue that conversation and probably meet whoever is coming to Astro and raise the same questions there, because I think it's a very important topic. And then I think this is a more question for both of you. And because when we were asking people to submit their questions before joining the webinar, as one of the biggest barriers, 41% actually of the registered people identified staff training. So when it comes to online adaptive, what is your experience? Probably Rune, starting with you, since I know that you might need to jump out the webinar soon. And then Alex, your thoughts on this question as well.
Sorry, could you just repeat the key point again?
The staff training. So what is?
Oh, yeah. So we basically started by putting a physicist and a clinician at the treatment console when we do this procedure. Quite obviously, if we want to scale it up to more patients, we need to get the RTT trained to do most of this on their own. But that was kind of our phase 2 and in what we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. And Alex, your experience with this?
I mean, it's a big hot topic, isn't it? You know, how can we make it more sustainable staffing wise for online adaptive radiotherapy? And like Rune's just said, I think it's wise to start with all of the MDT and all of the experts at, you know, planning, at contouring for the doctors, and of course you need the RTTs. But we've implemented training programs to try and get the RTTs in actually contouring, and we have developed, let's say, traffic light systems of if this clinical goal is achieved, then the doctor is happy to delegate plan approval to the online planner. So, there's two things going on when you try and get rid of a doctor. One is the contouring, and one is how do you approve that plan? So that's how we've tackled that. And then sort of to take a step back from how it actually works in the online setting, I think one thing for training that we found completely invaluable is before you go live to do lots of end-to-end workflows with phantoms so that the whole MDT is there on the treatment unit and everyone's really familiar with the different tasks that are happening and the order and who's responsible for what tasks. So we tried like we took inspiration from. Still hear me?
We lost you a little bit, but now you're back.
Okay. We took inspiration from what happens on an aeroplane. And whenever people perform a certain task, they say what they're doing.
Right. I think the connection is on and off a little bit, but what I've heard is that
I'm back now. So end-to-end workflows with, to get everyone familiar with the process is key.
And as I recognize what you were trying to say is that also that it needs to be in phases, so it's not everything at the same time, like end to end, because it's hard to adopt a new approach, which is as complex as sometimes online that could be, or it's just something completely new. All right, so we are after 5 in Stockholm time, which means we are more than an hour here together with you, as lovely as it is to have that discussion, to have that topic. I think it's time to wrap it up. But as I said, it's just the first episode in this series. There is more to come. And I believe we might see the same faces. Rune, Alex, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your experience, for answering all the questions in the chat live. And also we would follow up with Alex, Rune, you, so to answer any follow-up questions if we missed some of them. So I believe we'll meet you in other discussions, in webinars, in Astro, or in other forums, because this topic it's not gonna go down. It's just gonna go up. That's the trend, and this is where community has to go. Research webinars. We would love to invite you to an episode 2 into the adaptive care your way webinar series. And this one is actually not so far along from now. It's only in 2 weeks on May 12th. Same time, so it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon for the Central European time zone. And this time we'll have two people joining us from Iridium Network, which is a hospital network located in Belgium, to share their experience with their online adaptive evolution. And today we had some experience with Elekta CR machines with Radiotherapy, and also Alex Vision to tap into other hardware vendors. And I believe Gert de Kerf and Joachim Merkel will be sharing more of other vendor hardware integration and a way towards online adaptive radiotherapy in 2 weeks. So let's all meet in 2 weeks. And for now, enjoy your afternoons, or enjoy your beginning of the day, or just your time, because cancer care is getting better, and we're all here for that. Thank you so much.